Hello everyone, so just another quick update on this vlog. So I have now finished Owls of the Eastern Ice by Jonathan Slort, and I listened to this on the BorrowBox audiobook app, and it was around 8 hours long. Now I don't want to spend too much time dwelling on it because I don't actually have lots to say about this. So it is narrated by Jonathan, who is an ornithologist who spent the book looking for fish owls in Russia. So they are very hard to find, and many ornithologists don't know much about this particular owl species. So the book is the journey for Jonathan of finding the fish owls in remote areas of Russia, of spending weeks with other ornithologists and technicians trying to find the fish owls, capture them, or record bits of their behaviour, and to spend hours out in the bleak Russian winter watching them and trying to find them. I loved the commentary on Russian culture, and as Jonathan is American, he had a bit of a culture clash with some people that he met, and I found that was really interesting, and that brought a vividness and a extra level of density to this story. Ultimately, it does what it says on the tin. It tells us all about things that we didn't know about fish owls, and I found as an audiobook, I can't lie, I found it very enjoyable, and I was listening to chunks of it while going to work, and I really got into the story. I think Jonathan has a fantastic narrating voice, and I found it a thoroughly fun experience. The problem was, by 5 hours into the audiobook, I'd learned everything that I was going to learn as somebody who knows nothing about birds in general, or owls, and is listening to it purely from a layman's perspective. From about 5 hours into the audiobook, I knew as much as I was going to know about the topic, so I think maybe a few hours off the audiobook could have been shaved, or words from the actual printed non-fiction could have been cut, because obviously I didn't read it in print form. And so obviously the last couple of hours felt like a lot of rehashing for me of a topic that I already known enough about. It's hard to explain, but when you're not fascinated by this topic, you get to a point where there's about as much new knowledge as you're going to take in on that subject, and then the rest is just going to go over your head. So it did feel a little bit repetitive the last 3 hours, because it's very similar stuff he's describing. He's describing being out in the Russian wilderness for 6 weeks with a group of men trying to get fish owls and trying to trap them and record them and find out whether they were male or female. So the first 5 hours I was really interested in that, but then when he goes to another part of Russia and does the same thing, I think because I'm a layperson with no alternative interest in fish owls, my interest just started to wane by that point. But I think so many people will enjoy this, and lay people will get a lot out of it, people that don't necessarily know much about owls, birds, or fish owls. Yeah, I think it was a really fun story. So I've given it 3.5 out of 5 stars because I think it was much better than These Fevered Days. And I was really enjoying the audiobook, I have to be honest. I found it really enjoyable. But it was a one-note kind of story. So unlike The Next Great Migration, once my interest started waning on a topic, the author switched to something different, which I think was clever. Because this is just one topic, felt one-dimensional, like we couldn't just push those last 3 hours over the edge and make it better, which I just have to be brutally honest. So I just don't think it excelled that next level like The Next Great Migration did, and obviously it didn't touch the other book, Conditional Citizens, for me. So I'm plunking it in the middle at the moment, so it will go, the rankings at the minute will go number 1, Conditional Citizen, number 2, The Next Great Migration, number 3, The Owls of the Eastern Ice, and number 4, These Fevered Days. I am currently now reading Mozart by Jan Swafford. Even holding this book is just ridiculous. It is so heavy. I've tried when I've been reading it to prop it up, but that does not help. It is just so heavy. And what's crazy is these pages are super delicate. I'll see if I can, I don't know whether it'll translate very well on the screen, but just really thin pages, like really super delicate. So it is a bit of a physical workout reading this. I am literally only about 50 pages in and it's 740 pages. I got a great heads up by Robert over at Barter Hordes on his Last Friday Reads video, which mentioned this book, and he did mention that if you don't have a background in musical theory, just skip all the bits that deal with the musical side of things, because a lot of it apparently is in a lot of heavy detail that even Robert, who has a musical theory background, felt went over his head a little bit, and I have no musical theory background, so those bits I'm quite happy that Robert's almost given me the go-ahead to skip those, so that's fine. The actual biography side of it at the moment is quite interesting. It's giving the historical context of the city in which Mozart was born, and as someone who did a history degree, I find history interesting anyway. So we will see. I mean, we're page 50 of a 700-page book, so God knows in which direction this is going to go, but I'm going to give it a go and see. So I will let you guys know when I get a little bit further into this. I probably will give you my initial thoughts around midway or a couple of hundred pages in, because there's no way I'm going to read all this and then give you a wrap up, because I'm assuming I'll have a lot of thoughts at different points in this book. So when I get a few hundred pages in, then I'll catch up with you again on this, and hopefully by then Entangled Life by Merlin Sheldrake will have come through on my BorrowBox app. That is coming through as an ebook, and that should be around the beginning of March, so I'll keep you up to date with Mozart and also with how I'm getting on with Entangled Life. So I'll speak to you when I'm a little bit further on. Hi guys, so just another check-in with this Octofinals vlog for you guys. So I have finally made some kind of dent in Mozart. So I've took the dust jacket off the little cover because it's got real serious now, so I just needed the bare hardback. I needed to get down and dirty with this book to finish it. So it's helping me get through it, but I am currently 260 pages in, and 350 will make it halfway, so not yet halfway. Steadily working my way through this, and Entangled Life became available on my library BorrowBox app, so I've downloaded that and I am 2 chapters into that. So I'm just going to put this book down because it's just really heavy. So I have some thoughts currently floating around now that I'm on the last 2 books. What I'm finding is that Mozart and These Fevered Days are very similar, because obviously they're biographies, so that's a bit of a stupid thing to say, but the style of the book is very similar, and obviously similar things are happening in both books because we're learning about people's lives. And I've noticed since I've started chapter 2 in Entangled Life, that is very similar to Owls of the Eastern Ice. By similar with these books, I mean in genre, not necessarily content, because the content is different, but similar style between Owls of the Eastern Ice and Entangled Life. So I'm trying to be really wary of pitting them against one another and having more of an interest in the first one that I read as opposed to the second. Now, in terms of Mozart, that's not necessarily true. I'm finding Mozart actually more interesting than These Fevered Days in terms of the biography. I'm finding there's lots of little interesting nuggets of additional information in this book that I'm enjoying. I'm enjoying the history of the different cities, the history of music and operas, and Mozart's young life and his influence of his father Leopold, and a bit about gossip of the time and the upper class. There's dukes and duchesses and emperors, and I'm finding that the biography side is really interesting. I have taken a leaf out of Robert from Barter Horde's book, And I have skipped over the musical bits because they are in a lot of depth about D minor, G minor, things that I know nothing about, nor am I compelled to read pages and pages of. But skimming that has been fine. And so far, like I said, there is other interesting things in this book. The relationship between Mozart and his father, like I mentioned, but also to his sister, to his cousin. We're learning more as he is coming into young adulthood about the perceptions of him as he was a child genius and now as he's maturing into his adulthood. And the different political, socio-economic differences in cities and countries. He visits Italy and he visits Germany and he visits Augsburg and Salzburg, where he's from. So they're all very interesting things, and they were more interesting to me than These Fevered Days because Emily Dickinson's life was a lot more solitary, and therefore we just didn't have much to go on. But what I am apprehensive about with Mozart is now I'm not yet halfway through, and I have a feeling that if he continues down this vein, it will get boring because we have heard about Mozart going out on tours, we've heard about him writing operas and concertos and all these different things. And if that continues, as somebody who doesn't have a vested interest in Mozart's life or his music particularly, it will then just feel like it's covering a lot of repetitive ground. So I'm hoping that the biography pulls it together enough. Otherwise, you just can't justify a biography of this length unless it was for people who were really interested in Mozart and fanatics of Mozart, because no layperson or someone that doesn't have a vested interest is really going to justify 740 pages of one person's life in such minutiae detail. So, bit apprehensive about that. Similar with Entangled Life at the moment. I'm finding that I found Owls of the Eastern Ice on audiobook just more enjoyable. I don't know really whether the content is a fair comparison at this stage because I didn't read Owls of the Eastern Ice in physical form. I know that Merlin Sheldrake is really interested in fungi and he's going to go into a lot of detail, but I feel like, again, as somebody who doesn't have a vested interest in fungi, I'm just worried that it's going to go into so much detail and not keep me captivated. That was my slight criticism of Owls of the Eastern Ice. Towards the end, I'd kind of got as much as I was going to get about this new topic. And with The Next Great Migration, and something that Underland did very well, is it switched topics so that when I was starting to get bored of something in that level of detail, we had a new experience or a new topic to introduce that would be a palate cleanser to what we were learning. So at the moment, I already think, based on where I'm at, that These Fevered Days and Mozart will probably go lower down the pecking order, the last two spots, because I just think this biography would have had to be amazing for it to justify 740 pages. And I don't want to put any other fellow booktubers and book Instagrammers through this reading experience because I just don't think it justifies the means. I don't think 740 pages of Mozart should be endured by anyone, whether you have a vested interest or not. But saying that, I am enjoying the biography bits. I'm really enjoying those bits. It's just a very slow style, and I'm starting to be apprehensive that there's going to be a lot of repetitive elements to this, and the music bits are just going completely over my head, so I'm skipping those. And then with Entangled Life and Owls of the Eastern Ice, they are vying for that third position at the moment. Maybe Sheldrake can completely surprise me, and once I get a little bit further in the book I might find it really powerful, but I'm just feeling like it's very similar in style to Owls of the Eastern Ice, and I enjoyed that audiobook a lot, and it was only 8 hours, so it felt like quite a condensed experience, although I did say in my feedback that it still could have lost a few hours of the audiobook. But I have downloaded it on to BorrowBox as an ebook, and the ebooks are slightly different because I've zoomed them in. So it says around 1,000 pages and I'm only up to around 100 pages. So I feel like it maybe is actually quite a chunky book. So that's what I'm a bit apprehensive. If it becomes a little bit too drawn out, then I think it will go under Owls of the Eastern Ice. And so we're looking at the moment, Conditional Citizens, I don't think anything's going to top that at this stage. So I think that's going to be my predicted number 1. The Next Great Migration is number 2. And then between Entangled Life and Owls of the Eastern Ice, we're going to see where they pit out. And then my prediction is that Mozart will go in 5th place and that These Fevered Days will go in 6th place. So everything's all to play for because I've still got a massive chunk of Mozart, but I will finish it because you have to respect the prize, and when you say you sign up, it's so important that you do what you are expected to do. Robert put so much effort into this prize, so I highly respect him and this prize, so I will finish it. But I already think, considering I'm not yet halfway, that my interest will wane, so I don't think it's going to get out of the bottom position. And in terms of Entangled Life, we'll just have to see. So I'm going to check in with you guys probably when I'm at least 80%, 75% with this, because I just don't want to keep boring you by hammering on about the same thing with this book. So hopefully nearly finishing it, I'll give you one last check-in before I finish it. I'll give you one last check-in when I'm nearly finished it, and then one when I finished it is what I mean, so maybe 2 more check-ins. And I will give you a check-in when I'm about halfway through Entangled Life, because I'm still very new into it. And then obviously I'll give you feedback when I've fully finished both of them and the final placings. So I hope that makes sense and is not too confusing for you guys. But I'll check in with you when I'm a bit further on with my last 2 books. Bye for now. Hello everyone, so here's another check-in with you guys. So I have finished Entangled Life and I have around 200 pages left of Mozart. So when I last checked in with you guys, I explained that I think that it will be a race between Owls of the Eastern Ice and Entangled Life for the 3rd spot, and that Mozart's probably going to go under These Fevered Days. Now, surprisingly, my opinions changed a little bit. So, surprisingly, I am still enjoying this book. I have about 200 pages left. I'm still doing the technique of skipping anything to do with music and different operatic styles because they're not things I'm interested in. But I am impressed that the biography has still kept going in an engaging way, considering I'm on page 500 now and I'm still interested in Mozart's relationships with his family, with sponsors and people who are supporting him in the different cities, and the political and economic and social landscapes of cities like Vienna and Salzburg and places in Italy and different styles. I'm finding the history very interesting still. And I find Mozart's letters to his dad, excerpts and snippets of them are in here, really interesting as an inside look into who Mozart was, the psychology of the man, and his relationships to women and his wife, and those things are really interesting. So for me, I've still got something that draws me to this book, which I'm quite surprised about. I do think for a lot of people that's just not going to sustain them, particularly if history's just not your jam either, and then on top of that, you're not interested in Mozart's music, then this is just a double whammy, boring text for some of you. It will be. But for me, it's surprising me. I'm not loving it, don't get me wrong, I'm not tearing through the pages. It does still feel a bit more like I've got to get through it, but the actual text is quite enjoyable. My change of opinion, however, is more prominent with Entangled Life. I expected it to be very similar to Owls of the Eastern Ice and my opinion to be very similar, and then to decide which had more merit. But if I'm being brutally honest, I found the book boring. And I'm quite shocked because I thought I would find something interesting in it. The problem is, I think fungi as a topic, or fungi, whichever one you want to call it, is fine in a chapter or maybe 2 chapters. I think a full book dedicated to it, even with the diversity of topics, within fungi that Sheldrake addressed just wasn't enough to keep me hooked. So he deals with different areas of fungi. He talks about the wood world web, and he also talks about topics like truffles, lynching, how kind of fungi can sometimes grow inside of animals, and about the networking and the socializing under the ground. Some of it I knew from Robert Macfarlane's chapter in Underland and from other books that I've read, but the topics just weren't gripping me, and I'm a bit disappointed because I know that this is a highly regarded non-fiction and so many people have loved this book, but I just have to be brutally honest with this prize, and it's just how I'm feeling. I found it more of a chore to read than I enjoyed it. Maybe it's just not my topic. It is a very niche topic, and obviously it won't appeal to everyone, but because I enjoyed Owls of the Eastern Ice on audio so much, I just found it enjoyable and an escapist, and I was listening to it in pockets to and from work, and I was really getting into it in those 15 minutes walk to work, which is very rare. Usually I can with a podcast, but usually an audiobook I can find myself zoning out in the morning or coming back from work and not retaining the information. Whereas with this one, I was alert all the way through, so I know that I enjoyed it. I just didn't have that experience with Entangled Life. I think the pictures in the book, in the ebook at the end, there's a section on the pictures that he's taken, and he's taken from other people about the different mushrooms, and I found that interesting. And I think if this had been condensed into an hour lecture or presentation or a podcast series, it might have been more engaging to me in a different format, but I have to be honest, I was bored and it wasn't enjoyable for me, and I'm quite shocked because apart from these fevered days, I haven't really experienced that at all with the prize yet. So I knew this was going to be a challenging round because the diversity in non-fiction this year is insane compared to last year, and what that means is that there are a lot more niche topics of non-fiction than there was last year, which obviously increases the risk of us not enjoying it on an individual basis because the diversity is so vast. We're not going to like everything. So I'm just accepting that me and fungi are not best friends, and it was just not my book. Maybe because I'm stressed with uni work and trying to get these books read, maybe that affected my reading. But where it stands at the moment, I actually think I enjoyed it less than Mozart. And because these three books are not going to go into the next round on my rankings, I just think it doesn't really matter where I place them because it's not going to affect the outcome that much. Because at one point I was wrangling with myself, well, do I put Entangled Life above Mozart because more people will find it enjoyable? And the fact of the matter is, past the top three, where does it matter where I rank them? So I might as well rank them on where I personally enjoyed them the most or the least. So with that in mind, I think right now my ranking is going to be number 6, These Fevered Days, number 5, Entangled Life, number 4, Mozart, number 3, Owls of the Eastern Ice, number 2, The Next Great Migration, and number 1, Conditional Citizens. Now, I do have 200 pages left of Mozart, so I will probably do a very quick clip after I've finished it, just to confirm my rankings as they stand provisionally now, and to just tell you how I feel at the end of this. But really, I'm quite confident that that ranking won't really change. But I will do a final check-in with you guys once I finish this book. Hello everyone, so this is my final check-in for the Octofinals reading vlog for the Group G Non-Fiction 2021 round. So I have finally finished Mozart by Jan Swafford, and I finally put the dust jacket back on because I am going to get rid of this book. After I finished it, I'm going to get rid. So I might just take it to a charity shop, or I might put it on Ziffit and then it can go back to World of Books as a pre-owned book for their collection. So I finished the book today. It is around 6:30 at night. I've got my pyjamas on because it's still dark. We're still not at springtime yet. So I just thought I'd film now because there is nobody currently disturbing me, so what is a better time than now? There isn't, especially in a house full of 5 people. So I'm just going to crack on. So Mozart was interesting. My interest did wane at the end, the last 200, 300 pages. I kind of had given up with Mozart. Obviously it ends on his death and reflecting a little bit on how he wasn't as well known during his lifetime and about his fundamental relationships with his father, his sister and his wife, which I found very interesting. But none of these things warranted 740 pages, I'm afraid, and I don't think many readers will have stayed as interested all the way through unless they were a Mozart fan. I did skim read and skip whole pages that were dedicated to musical theory that I just went over my head and I didn't enjoy. But now that we're at the end, I think my ranking is gonna pretty much stay similar to my provisional ranking. This round has been quite hard for me, just having a bit of a reflective moment today, finishing Mozart. It's been a challenge, this non-fiction category for me. Just like I've mentioned previously in other clips in this vlog, it's just the niche topic areas and the expansive depth of the non-fiction round this year. 4 out of the 6 books weren't on the surface something I enjoyed, and apart from Owls of the Eastern Ice, which surprised me, these 3 books, These Fever Days, Mozart and Entangled Life, I don't think any of them, in my opinion, are good enough to go to the next round, and I don't think they will have the popularity in this category. I'd be surprised, maybe they will, maybe something like Entangled Life might get through in the top 3. But these books were just weren't interesting enough to grab a audience that didn't have a particular interest in these topics before starting this selection of books. So I'm quite happy to put Entangled Life at 5th and Mozart at 4th because they all need to be under the top 3, and I think rightly so. I think my top 3 choices were the best out of this round. That's my personal opinion. It's very subjective. I'm sure when we watch each other's vlogs, we'll realise that people had completely different opinions to me, which is absolutely fine. But looking forward, I'm just relieved that this part of my judging is done. It is around the 12th of March now, so I still have some of March left to dedicate to writing my essays and reading some fiction, because Mozart and Entangled Life, because they were heavy non-fiction topics, they kind of got me in a reading slump, and I don't like being in a reading slump, and I like having fiction on the go all the time. But I promised myself that I wouldn't start anything, take anything out of the library, read any NetGalley books, read any physical books until these were finished. So I'm quite happy that the noose around my neck that was Mozart is done. And it's not been a negative experience, it's just been more challenging than last year, just because of the topics. I don't like biographies and I don't tend to like nature books, so I knew going in this was going to be a challenge. I think I've risen to the challenge and given it my best attempt, and I'm very happy with the top 3 that I've selected, and I'm hoping that the next round of the prize I will be given a fiction category for a bit of diversity, and maybe when I meet non-fiction further down the road, the selection will have been whittled down to some fantastic non-fiction to reinvigorate my love for non-fiction, because I wanted this year to do both fiction and non-fiction judging, because last year I had such a positive experience judging the non-fiction round. So many books that I was really interested in were on the prize, and a whole host of books I'd never heard of were on the prize that I really wanted to read after doing a bit of research. So it really invigorated this enthusiasm for non-fiction. And obviously Olive does a big thing in November for Non-Fiction November, and I was really invigorated and excited and really wanted to participate in Non-Fiction November, and I want to do that this year, and I really want to look at putting more non-fiction in my reading. But this set me back slightly, just because this is just a massive book, and it was enjoyable in parts but overall not enjoyable. And Entangled Life was just not enjoyable. And These Fever Days was not enjoyable. So that's my rant over off the soapbox. I'm really enjoying the experience like last year. in terms of being a judge. I love participating in it. I really respect the prize and Robert, and I love that we have this prize, and I'm so excited to be involved in every single round if it's humanly possible, if I'm allocated every round, and I will always go for that. I want to be in every round. So yeah, that is my waffle over. So I'm going to wrap this up. So my final rankings for the Group G Octofinals non-fiction is These Fevered Days is at number 6. Number 5 is Entangled Life. Number 4 is Mozart by John Swafford. Number 3 is Owls of the Eastern Ice. Number 2 is The Next Great Migration, and my top pick is Conditional Citizens. So thank you guys so much for watching both of my vlogs, and I will see you very soon with a new video, and hopefully I will see you all in the next round when our next vlogs will start going up. So hopefully if I am asked to do the second round of the judgings, then you will definitely be seeing some more vlogs of this nature. But thank you guys so much for watching.